Welcome to the Audacious OBM podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Woff, creator of OBM Academy and founder of Audacious Empires. Each week, my crew and I will explore all things building and scaling an exceptional OBM business. This podcast is here to share how you can charge premium prices, have clients lining up to work with you, and never have to work another weekend again. You can have a thriving OBM business working with the clients you want, when you want, and charging the price you want. It's time to banish mediocre and become the standout, sought after OBM you know you can be. Hello. How are you guys today? We are talking about one of my favorite things, money. Question I get asked all the time. How much does an online business manager charge? Dun, dun, dun. I know, it's all scary sounding. Mostly because every time you ask someone that question, they don't answer you. They give you a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo, or there's so many variables, but you never get a clear answer. What that means is that our industry suffers because a lot of us start with guessing and we guess too low. And then our clients or audience start to assume that online business managers should be cheap or cheaper than what we should be charging. Today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on how much an online business manager can charge. This is my perspective. I know that people will charge more. I know that people will charge less, but I'm going to explain what my reasoning is. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, it will give you a really solid starting point and it will boost your pricing confidence, which really is the secret to good pricing. All right, so first thing, when we are talking about our price and what we can charge, there are two core questions. The first one, how much do you want to charge? I know it sounds a little bit like, I want to know how much I should charge, but you're asking me how much I want to. That's not exactly what I came for, but it's important because you get a say and you need to know what feels good for you. Otherwise, you'll eventually close your business. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you feel like you're working hard for nothing, that's not a very good business model. So my question is, based on what you do now, what feels like you're taking advantage of yourself? What feels like a good rate? What feels like it would be intimidating or too much? Just get a gauge on where you are right now. And then do the same thing, but think about in 2 years' time. Then the second core question, what do you need to charge? Because your business has expenses. Your brain has expenses. Your life has expenses. All of these things factor into how much you charge. And you need to understand what those factors are. And you need to consider them when setting your price, especially because it will change how you answer question one. If all of a sudden you knew that it cost you an hour to run your business and you're charging $100 an hour, it's not feasible from the get-go. Every single second that you spend working, you're going to feel like I am losing money. This is not good. But without any context, it makes it harder for you. You have no baseline, not even at the bare minimum. Now, I know that you're not going to have costs of $407 an hour. You get what I mean. You need to at least know because it helps us rationalize. I want to give you some perspective. So before I go through and I give you another figure, I want to give you something to hold on to. Now, I did a super quick Google to my friend Glassdoor, and I looked up how much an operations manager earns a year in Australia. The answer is, on average, so this wasn't the lowest amount, it wasn't the biggest amount, it was the average amount, $144,000 a year for ops. Now, that's for a full-time person. And when we're looking at pricing, we're not looking at how much we're putting into our pocket. So this number is that pocket number. But it also is the amount that your clients or potential clients could go and pay for someone like you in an employed role. Now, let's break that down a little bit so it's more tangible. If we were to say work part-time and it was 1 and a bit days a week, when we break that $144K down, that works out to be about $3,000 a month for 1 and a bit days a week. If you're an operations manager, if you're an online business manager doing operations, that 1 and a bit days is going to give you the ability to do that job successfully, dependent on the client. At bare minimum, an employee is getting paid $3,000 to do that. And they're an employee. And the reason I keep saying that is because it is easier to be an employee than it is to be a business owner. There are less factors to consider when looking at wages and how much you're willing to work for. The price that you give a client to say this is how much it will cost to work with me is not the money that goes in your pocket. It is the amount that all of the expenses and the money that's meant to go into your pocket comes from. So in this scenario, the $3,000 a month is already too cheap because business, but also it doesn't factor in how much we get paid. How much do you want to get paid? So that's just some perspective for you. And it can help too if you're willing yourself to talk to someone about pricing or tell a potential lead how much it is to work with you. You've got an anchor. Use it as an anchor. Well, that's okay. If you think that it is too expensive to work with me right now, it's not in your budget, that's totally fine. You have other options. You can go and hire a full-time ops manager for $144,000 a year if that works better for you. Or you can pay me a fraction of that because I'm not going to be full-time. Plus, I have the benefit of having more experience and more versatile. You don't have to pay me super. You don't have to pay me tax. The list goes on. So now you've got a baseline. When we are setting our price, these are the things that we then have to add in on top. So let's say, as an online business manager, you wanted to earn $144,000 a year. You have to work out your rate based on $144,000 plus insurance. Now, this can be a big one. There's so many different types of insurances now. Public liability, professional indemnity, cyber insurance. And everyone needs insurance, particularly because a lot of subcontractors, if you want to work as a subby, the people that you are working for will ask you for your insurance details. And that is because insurance companies, more often than not, have a little thing on their form so that when the business goes there and says, yes, I want insurance, they have. Do you use subcontractors? Do you require them to have their own insurance? It's a factor that matters. So even if you're subbying, you still need insurance. It's a cost. Then there's marketing. Well, if you're going to run a business, you have to be able to promote it. whether that's in time or money or learning how to market. There's skill development. You cannot stay stagnant with what you know. We are online business managers, and the land of online evolves too quickly. If you stop learning, you will stay stuck. Tech upgrades. This is a big one that I just want to cement in because we don't have a ton of overheads as OBMs. We don't have to pay rent. We don't have to pay for electricity. We don't have to pay for building insurance. A lot of these things we don't experience as OBMs, and other businesses do. But we also seem to get very shocked when we need to consistently upgrade our computers and our laptops and our webcams. And that baffles me a bit because it is our overhead. Your tech is the biggest thing that you use to actually connect with your clients and do your job. So build in the fact that you're going to need to upgrade it regularly. That should be considered in your price. So it's not a sting or a shock when then you go, oh no, now I've got to come up with a few $1,000s to do this. If it's built into your price already, you'll have the money. There's registrations, business registrations, and certifications. And there's other fun things like super, tax, the uh-oh factor. So what if the economy takes a dive? If the economy takes a dive tomorrow, you want to make sure you have the ability to survive that. That only comes with building a buffer, and a buffer only comes if your price is higher. What if the cost of living rises? You have to factor that into your price. What if you want to grow your business? You have to factor that into your price. All these things cost money. So when you are saying this is how much it costs to work with me, remember that. Here's a big list of things that go into that cost. It is not how much money goes into your pocket. And the reason I keep saying that is because as OBMs, we tend to struggle with that difference. We feel like we're telling people, you're paying this much just for me to sit and type and do my brain thinking behind this computer. And it's not true. So we need to cut that tie or we will forever undercharge. Another thing that matters is location. Everything I am talking about today is based on Australia. I live in Australia. I understand the Australian market, and I know that it's different in other places in the world. A lot of these principles you'll still be able to apply, but the figures might not quite be there. More perspective. How much can an online business manager charge? 5 years ago, would have been at least 5 years ago, and I decided to put my online business manager cap on and offer that as a service, I charged $70 an hour. That was 5 years ago. And that was when I started. So I had been in the VA industry for a few years. I knew what I was doing, highly skilled person. I knew how to run a business. And when I started offering online business management services, I charged $70 an hour. We're 5 years ahead now. So now in that same circumstance, I would want to be charging $90 an hour, $100 an hour. 5 years is a long time. And that was without the experience I now have. So I want to give you that context. That's the number I'm giving you to hold on to. If you're charging $50 an hour in Australia and you're an OBM, it's too cheap. If you're charging $100 an hour in Australia, calling yourself an online business manager, but not doing that role, you shouldn't be charging anything. Go and work out how much it is to charge for your role. But as that starting point, if you've got some experience, you know what you're doing, you are capable, then $90 to $100 an hour is not a lot. And if you know that right now you're not charging that much, and you should be, or you could be, it's okay. Do what you need to do to take steps to increase your price. You don't have to do it overnight. You can. I know I did at one point in my business. I went from charging $2,000 a month to $4,000 a month to people. But I understand that pricing can be scary. So if you're in the undercharging bucket, which generally majority of us are, put some steps in place to increase your price, knowing that 5 years ago it was $70 an hour. Now, if you're an OBM and you package your services, you will earn more. And I'm going to explain why. As online business managers, we squirm when it comes to talking about money. I have worked with a lot of OBMs now, and in OBM Academy with my clients in there, and it's the same thing. We all struggle with the money conversation. We all struggle with splitting out our worth from the amount we charge. And that's okay. But if that's you, let's stop working against that and start working with it. If you know that when it comes to saying your price or saying your hourly rate, your belly does flip-flops and you don't want to, or you have a panic attack, stop saying it. To make hourly pricing work as an OBM, where you actually get the balanced value, you need a massive hourly rate. It needs to be high. To be able to pull that off, you got to be able to confidently say what that hourly rate is. Confidently enough to be able to sell it and explain it. Now, my gut feel is you probably don't want to do that. If we're working with the fact that, yeah, we wobble a little bit around price and money, we're working on it, we're getting better, move away from the hourly rate, because that's just going to bring more wobbles. But when we come to packaging, it gives us different options. If I say to someone, my hourly rate is $100 an hour, and I'll be your OBM, and they take that and they compare me with somebody else who charges $70 an hour to be an OBM, all they have to compare in these two cases is that dollar figure, $70 an hour, $90 an hour. Well, let's go with the $70 one and see how that goes. That's all we're giving them to compare us with. And if you're like me, you do not like getting compared based on price alone, especially when they don't have a full picture. If we put the effort into creating packages, all of a sudden we have more pieces to play with when it comes to comparison. In a package, you will have all of the inclusions, and you have to spend time thinking about those inclusions, coming up with them, listing them out in a way that makes sense. Now, when you quote how much it's going to cost to work with you, you have a list of things to give that person. It's going to cost you $1,000 to do this. Here's why. Here's the 10 things that are included in that. And then you add in the conversations around your experience, and you add in things like turnaround time and phase 1 and phase 2. You give more context, and packages need that. So they take more work up front, and we invest more work up front. We put a bigger dollar figure on it, but it's easier to anchor that price because it's easier to explain what someone's getting for it. Whereas when we just say an hourly rate, we can't really explain that means I'm going to do these 4 things. It makes it harder to compare things when you do packages, because majority of people don't have packages that are exactly the same. Therefore, clients start looking at other things like, what is it that they actually need? Does this person have that included in a package, or does this person? Cost is one thing, but they start to rationalize a little bit more. That might seem a bit cheaper, but this one has twice as many things, so maybe I'll do that. This person seems to have really good knowledge around the area. They're including strategy. I'm happy to pay a higher price for that package. We're not just looking at dollar for dollar without any context. So that's why I always encourage my OBM clients to move with packaging. I think that you'll end up with more value once you get into the groove of doing it. The next thing that I want to talk to you about when we're talking about charging and pricing things and working out what's fair and what's not is a story. So I was chatting with one of my clients in OBM Academy this week, and they were talking about this epic client journey that they created for one of their customers. And they were telling me what was involved. When they said it, they said, I created a client journey. We went through the client journey. Okay. When I listened, they didn't just go through the client journey. There was like 10 different services involved in going through that client journey. This is this big piece of work. My client had thought about things that other people wouldn't have thought about. This was an incredible job, an incredible effort, and well considered. And then I told my client how much I would have charged if I was doing that service for someone. And I watched their face change. And I told them how much a marketing consultant would have charged to do what they had just done. And more face changes. Because my client had charged such a tiny fraction of that because they didn't see what they'd actually done. And really getting that level of knowledge, experience, and understanding at a low hourly rate, that customer got a huge bargain. And my OBM client had no idea. And this is the pattern that we want to stop. When you package things properly, you can stop this, because then at the beginning, you start thinking about the scope. You start thinking about what's included. You start communicating that. When you go with hourly, you just go, oh yeah, I'll try this and I'll try that, and maybe we'll do this. And this is one example of how that can eventuate. You would have just lost out on thousands and thousands of dollars. That's the level we're talking. So you have choices, either up that hourly rate or get some packages happening. The final thing that I want to talk to you about is what happens when we undercharge. Lots of businesses don't survive purely because people undercharge. And when you're an online business manager and you undercharge, even by $10 an hour, $20 an hour, you ruin the whole industry. And it is because of that that each time I've increased my prices, I've had a little bit more confidence, because I know it's the right thing to do for everybody else that's in my boat. And sometimes I can't do things for me, but I can do them for other people. And I know that when we undercharge, we reinforce this idea that all of our work experience isn't that valuable. All of our life experience isn't that valuable. Our unique ability and skill isn't that valuable. Our capability and our way of being when under pressure isn't valuable. Because if you have all those things and you're charging less, and then someone next to you also has those things and is charging far more, someone's going to start looking for why. And the only why is they were brave enough to charge that much and you weren't yet. You didn't know yet. You hadn't taken the steps you needed to take yet. Or you hadn't factored in all the things that really come with a price. So if you are going to be an OBM or continue being an OBM, first you need to have the skill and confidence to own the role, and you need to charge the price to back it up. That is what I'm going to leave you with. Pricing is something that you struggle with, or you're trying to get your head around, or you're trying to find just the next step with. Check out OBM Academy. We focus a lot on pricing, and I will walk you through profitable pricing strategies so that you don't stay in this cycle of working too hard and getting underpaid. Or if you want to dip your toe in packaging, I have a masterclass that is for sale, and it comes with a template, and I walk you through how to create powerful packages so you can move away from hourly, if that's what you're interested in. The links are in the show notes. Send me a DM, start conversation, tell me what your biggest pricing struggle is. I want to hear from you. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of The Audacious OBM. We hope this episode has helped you move forward in your journey to being a standout and sought after OBM. If you enjoyed the episode, take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help other OBMs just like you. If you're interested in learning more about OBM Academy and all that it offers, head over to audaciousempires.com to get all the juicy details. We'll be back next week.